You are tuned in to Creativity on Tap. Creativity on Tap is a series of conversations produced by COMPAS about the value and importance of creativity. This year, COMPAS turns 50. That's half a century of putting creativity in the hands of millions of Minnesotans. We are working really hard to ensure we'll be doing this for 50 more years. Creativity on Tap is part of Creativity Saves the World, a year-long initiative led by COMPAS to explore the role creativity can and must play in solving the unique challenges of this era. For more information about COMPAS and how creativity saves the world, visit COMPAS, COMPAS.org. My name is Frank Centwali, and I'll be your host for Creativity on Tap. This week, our guest is Jacqui Thompson, who is basically the living embodiment of creativity. Her experience includes everything from working for musical icon Prince at his Paisley Park facility, where she helped create one of the music industry's first standalone distribution channels for independent artists. She's also a serial entrepreneur who has launched 2 alcohol brands so far, Revel Spirits, which is a new agave-based spirit, and Las Melodías de Luna Mezcal, where music and mezcal collide to create a harmony of flavors and experiences. And she's one of the founders of the PRN Alumni Foundation, a nonprofit comprised of former employees of Paisley Park and Prince. Their mission is to continue his legacy of generosity and charity. That is quite a lead-in and quite a resume. Welcome, Jacqui, to Creativity on Tap.
Thank you. Yeah. I don't know if I'll live up to all that, but I appreciate it.
Well, you will. Sometimes when people read off our resumes or they introduce us for stuff and we go, I guess I do kind of do all that.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot.
Yeah, don't stop to think about when you do it all, or else you'll get overwhelmed. You just
Right?
and
Exactly.
keep
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah.
So my first question for you then, I guess in that vein is, when do you sleep, woman?
Yeah. I've learned to. I don't think I used to too much. But when you get a little bit older, you learn how to balance. I was talking to Samantha Masalia just a few minutes ago,
Mhm.
as we were prepping, and as you get a little bit older, you start to like you're able to understand things are going to be okay, regardless if it's going to be whatever event it's going to be, whatever thing you're doing. Just like breathe deep, let it flow, and then go from there. So I've learned to manage that a little bit. So
It's interesting how we discover breathing and gravity at about the same stage of life, right?
right. Trust, I know, right?
Indeed, indeed. So for the audience that maybe doesn't know who Jacqui Thompson is, why don't you give us a little bit of your background? Tell us your origin story. How did where are you from?
Mhm.
Where did you grow up? How did you find yourself working in music and art? Yeah, how did we get here to this stage? Where's the beginning begin?
The beginning. I was born in London, England, and my mother is British. She was British, and my father is a American, from Detroit. So we moved to New York City, and both my parents are very creative. My father was a craftsman, did leather crafts, had a business of his own. So I come up from entrepreneurial parents, so that's how that kind of started. And then we moved from New York to Michigan, back to my dad's roots and family. And so I grew up in Michigan. I grew up outside of Ann Arbor, Michigan, and my mother had, she also had a business. She was a hairdresser and had an incredible business that she had for over 20, 25 years in downtown Ann Arbor. So I grew up around parents that had built their own businesses, and my mother was my mentor, my best friend, and she just really gave me kind of the chops on how to that you can do anything you can manifest and do that. So that's kind of where that happened. My love for music, my dad was a drummer, my brothers play. I played drums early on. We always had music gear in the basement. So I started as a musician and love of music. And I mean, the kind of music scope in our house was everything from my mother's side, which was more like European side of music, from anywhere from David Bowie to, Rolling Stones or whatever. And then my father's side was like a heavy jazz influence, a little bit of bebop, but more fusion. So I would hear a lot of like, Miles Davis, but definitely more of the cutting edge Miles Davis, like the
Right.
fusion and Lenny White and, all of
Maybe Herbie Hancock thrown
Weather
in there.
Report. Yeah, Herbie Hancock, Weather
Yeah.
Report, all that. So Jocko and all that. So I grew up listening to all that. So at an early age, I feel really lucky that I was able to understand what I wanted to do in life. I don't think everybody has that early. Sometimes it takes a journey to find out, your passion and what you want to do. Some people never find that passion, right, or figure it out. I felt like I already knew what I wanted to do early on, and I had to really focus on that. I didn't know how the path was going to lead and how it was going to work out, but I knew that's what I wanted to do. And I was in a band, but I would be the one that would put together the PR packet and branding and get the photos done and do all of the things that needed to happen for the band on top of playing. And I was pretty good drummer, not too bad. At and So we sent a demo up to Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis's Flight Time, and uh, I just have had the ability to kind of finagle my way through and find the right people to make sure, I just was able to connect. So I knew that I needed to find someone and up the at Perspective, So I called Perspective, found the number. I don't know how I found it, but I found
So
it,
you
and I
cold
called.
called them?
What's that?
You cold called them?
I cold called,
Okay.
and I ended up with the A&R person at Perspective, and her name was Sonia Cates, and at the time, and I talked her into taking a moment and let me send our demo up, and she said yeah she would, so I did. So I sent the package up, and she got back with me like about a week later and said she dug it and was going to let Jimmy and Terry hear it. And so that kind of the start of like my kind of love affair with Minneapolis and in Minnesota. And I didn't know where I was going to. Our band ended up breaking up. I'm speeding up the time. Bands do break up. But I had come
No,
up.
no.
You know how that goes. But I had come up. I was invited up. Sonia said, there's this Black Music Awards, and a guy named Pete Rhodes. He does panels, and Jimmy and Terry are going to be on this panel. You should come up. So, um, I'm about grasping opportunities and going for it. So I packed up a couple of band members, and we went up, and it was the first time I met Pete Rhodes. I'm sure you know Pete, and yeah, so we connected with Jimmy and Terry. They did dig us. Ultimately, didn't sign us, but interesting enough, I end up in a limo. I don't know how. I don't even remember how. I ended up in a limo with Jimmy and Ralph Trasvend and a guy named Buzz Willis, and then my keyboardist slash boyfriend at the time. You know how that goes.
I
And so,
do.
yeah, and I don't know how we were in it. They were going to record Ralph's first album called Stone Cold Gentleman. I'm totally dating myself, but anyway. And Buzz Willis was a manager, and he managed Kool and the Gang. And so we started talking, and then I started chatting with Buzz, and Buzz was like, "Well, send me your stuff." And so I did, and he signed us to a management contract, which he also managed Color Me Bad. And
Okay.
Color Me Bad blew up, and
Right.
then we shelved. So anyway, the band broke up, but in the interim, I got invited up to play in this all-female benefit concert at the State Theater and Javita Steele, and it was all women. And I played drums. There was another drummer, and we would duel off. And that was the first time I met Craig Rice. And
Right.
so Craig had come to this, it was a benefit for the homeless, and so we performed, and that was, and then I fell in love with Minnesota, and I said, I'm moving here. I don't,
Oh.
yeah. So that's how I ended up in Minnesota. So,
Well, you met all the coolest people before you even moved here. So I
like,
guess from your perspective, it's like this is the place to be because I
this is
know
the place to be, right?
right.
Yeah. So that led me up, and I didn't know at the time that I would be working for Prince. It wasn't like a goal. It was just I felt like I had opportunities here, one to perform if I wanted to, but really I wanted to get into management and help artists. I'm one that loves to give. And so for me, my I felt my best foot forward in what I have a affinity towards, and maybe a gift towards, was able to see help artists understand from an artist perspective, right? I knew that the language that artists speak, in a sense, just like how they, so I felt like I had an extra thing that I could bring to the table as far as being a manager. So, that's kind of where I wanted to go.
Let me ask you, how did that kind of fit, or what was the juxtaposition between yourself as an artist and then also, wanting to kind of do the more tedious business side of things, whether, the managing, the making the phone calls, the constant communication. I know, and I ask this because I know I always say the biggest mistake I made as an artist was deciding to be a part of the production of our group's first album.
Mhm.
And once I started spending more time behind a switchboard than I spent behind a pencil and paper, I felt like it really took years off of my artistic growth. And much like yourself, I booked the tours, I managed the band, I organized the set list, I rented the trailer until we bought a trailer. Like I did
Right,
all of that stuff for the band, and I was the front man. So
right,
and I was, co co-mixing all of the mixes, I was co-producing, I was executive producing, and then somewhere along the way I forgot that, oh yeah, I got into this because I love writing and I love performing. So how did you kind of, what happened to Jacqui the musician, Jacqui the musical artist, in the landscape of becoming Jacqui the manager, the
right.
booking agent, the A&R person, and all of that other stuff?
Right, that's a great question. I kind of knew that I didn't need to, for me, be on stage. That wasn't my like, oh my God, I got to be on stage. I enjoyed being on stage, but it wasn't what my calling was. And so I I did a nice transition. I felt like my music style. I remember my dad saying, um, if you love music, you'll play regardless. You don't have to play
Right,
for anybody. You play for
right.
yourself, kind of thing. In that, um, it's been challenging over the years as far as to have my own play. I write a little bit still, just for me.
Mhm.
I haven't played in a long time because it's just, having a drum set and, move, over the years, you just kind of, and I'm busy, I mean, it's
Right.
like, that's another thing that to try to work out. But that's a great question. I do feel like for me that I knew that, my passion was helping ultimately. And so I felt like having this musical background was a really an advantage, in a sense of having the creativity and understanding creativity, and then, but I also had this other part of me that was very structure and getting things moving and networking and knowing how to create something from nothing and bringing it to be in this world, right? Just bringing it down and making it happen. So that branding was so I'm still creative,
Mhm.
I and just in a different way. I use my creativity to produce things that and help people produce things. And so that's where I felt my gift was, more so, and my passion was. So it was an easy transition for me. I made sure I knew every part of the music business so that I could be able to talk to musicians and understand if they talked about a compressor in the studio. I knew what they were talking about. I understood delays. I understand, apps, and I understand, the different. I still keep up with what people are recording with and
Okay.
how they're recording, and it's gotten a lot easier than it did when I was growing, right?
Yeah.
So I actually went to school for recording for a year, so I knew how to understood the studio side. So when I ended up working with Prince, I think it was a nice balance for him because although I was doing the work on the business side, I understood him as a musician,
Right.
his language, right?
Mhm.
Like if he said, can you get such and such because I'm having trouble with, whatever board. I'm like, I understood like
Right.
what was needed in that. So
Right.
that I think was an advantage to have that behind me. But I just change my creativity from maybe playing on the set on to being creative and helping artists, and so that.
That's funny because you really answered the next. My follow-up question was going to be, do you feel like you just kept your creative juices and just transferred them into being creative in another arena?
Absolutely.
It wasn't like you lost creativity. You just like, okay, I'm going to repurpose my creative spirit over here in this area.
Yeah, because I mean I would be director of making sure the photography, making sure we had the right graphic designers, helping them. I I ended up being I found like what do I do? I do creative directing a lot.
Yes. Yes.
Right? So it's all creative. And honestly, in life, everybody's creative.
Yes.
You might be an accountant or whatever it is. It might not sound creative, but it's still, you have to have creative solutions for numbers. You have to be creative in your own way, in your own space. So I think that's why early creativity is so important to like let it flourish, because whatever you end up getting into, you might not be a rock star. You might not go into that, but you might be in the corporate world, and you have to create these creative solutions for whatever it is that you're in. And so I just feel like we're all creative in just different ways and different forms. So
That's been a common denominator amongst our guests on the show Creativity on Tap here, is that they've all said that no matter what walk of life you're in, you're being creative whether you realize it or not. And I think people that have really excelled in their professions, that's the mindset that they feel like everyone should have. And I think where people fall short in maybe their aspirations or their careers versus people who kind of achieve the things they want to achieve is that outlook on, you know, everything that I do comes from a creative spirit, as a human being versus overly critiquing yourself for trying to make yourself too much of what I call an android, right? We're not androids.
no,
We're
we're not.
living, breathing, feeling, heat generating creatures. And I think that common denominator that was expressed by yourself, by Craig Rice, who's been a guest on our
Mhm.
show, is that no matter what you're doing, you're using creativity. I know for myself, I spent a lot of my time as a residency artist with Compass, and believe you me, when you have 1 week to get seventh graders to write a full 1-page poem and perform it, you better be real creative. And seventh
Right,
grade, Roseville, Minnesota, where I'm at now, is a very different type of um, uh, encouraging than seventh graders in East St. Paul, right?
right.
different environments. So I agree with that wholeheartedly, is that we are constantly figuring out ways through the maze, both professionally and personally. And
Right.
like anybody who's ever been in a relationship and had to tell their significant other something that was going to be a difficult conversation went through a very creative process before they had that conversation
Very
in their
true.
own mind. Like, how
Right.
am I going to,
Okay.
what angle? Right.
Exactly. No, we
So
are. We're creative beings, you know.
yes.
This is really interesting. I know I'm going to bring in AI for a minute
Hmm.
to that. So I was just down at a summit, and one of the sessions was actually it was a alcohol spirits summit, but it's really interesting that one of the sessions was about AI and how adaptive and how how to use it as a tool and they did a to see if we knew the generated image of an AI versus someone that shot this.
Hmm.
And I know it's going to get better where you're almost not going to be able to see, but you can still see the AI. I knew what was the AI in general, like because it's too perfect.
Right.
So when you
Right.
brought up like the Android and it's too you know, like there was one shot of a couple and it was the lighting and I know that it was a human eye that
With
in
that light.
human that
Right.
lighted it that you know what I mean.
Yes.
I don't know if AI yet has the capability to it would take that and it would make it too perfect, right?
Right.
Take the
Right.
lighting to the so it's really interesting. We are still very we're needed. We're in our in there's something that is an element that I don't think any AI really will have in a sense. Maybe one day, like way down 200 or 300 years down the line, maybe.
That'll be scary.
But right now it's in its infancy, and you can still there's an element of not understanding the element that human element yet.
Right. Right.
So
That soul.
so
AI
that
does not have a
right.
soul.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Absolutely.
extrapolating information from us,
Right.
in that. So anyway, I didn't want to go down to eight, but that just reminded me of some interesting. So yeah, I mean, we are all very creative in whatever we do if we really think about it. So
I'm so trying to get these young people to understand that and to not be afraid of their creativity. It's a big part of the work we do. Is and young people are so afraid of being different in so many ways in today's society, right? And so encouraging them that your humanness is in your difference and to be okay with not being homogenized and not be assembly
right,
line. I think so many middle schoolers are afraid to even raise their hand in class anymore because they don't want to stand out. um,
interesting. Yeah.
it really is. And I think COVID had a lot to do with that because they were
Mhm.
so isolated in
Mhm.
a space where everything was just really individualized and
Mhm.
thrown back into a crowd setting. And now it's kind of like, well, I wasn't prepared for this socialization,
Right.
especially this group that was in, second, third grade back in 2020, 2021. And now
Right.
they're getting to that middle school age where you're already super insecure. And then,
Right.
oh man, like we're going to write poems. And I think we caught 20 students using AI generated poems in my last residency. And to speak of what you're talking about, the teacher had already used the AI. They have apps where you can test and see if a student's work is authenticated or if it was AI produced and what percentage, 60%, 100%. And so she had already marked AI on the back side of the rubrics that I was grading their performances. And she said, let's play a game. Let's see if you can pick which ones the student actually wrote and which ones were AI generated. And like yourself, I picked which ones were AI generated without knowing in advance every time because
Okay.
there wasn't a soul put into the writing that I was like, yeah, this writing does not connect to that image that I'm seeing in front of me delivering those words. And they're not
Exactly.
delivering it
Yeah.
with any soul. So I
Right.
know you didn't write this because when you create something, you put your soul in it, you're connected to it.
Right. And not knocking that as a tool. you can actually do some things to help. I'm at first I was like, it's already out of the box, so it's
Hmm.
in that way. We have to, and look at it in a positive way if we can, and use it as a tool. I use it for some marketing, just to it helps with time, with certain
Hmm.
and
Yep.
you do have to go in and you do have to correct it to make it your feel.
Yep.
You
Yep.
do have to write something in there that is cohesive,
Yes.
and then you tell it, keep the tone, keep the feel, but it helps edit. You can help
Right.
edit.
Right. Right.
So but when you're doing a poem, it should come from the
From
heart,
you. That's
right?
exactly.
So yeah, so it's really interesting. It's a whole new world out there with that.
Well, not to go down the AI rabbit hole.
Right?
So you are someone who lives passionately and fearlessly, clearly, and I think that you've already touched on kind of the diversity of your background, having a mom from London, being born in London, from London to New York to Detroit. It doesn't get much different, although I call London, New York, East, but
Right.
and then because I've been to both places, and then Detroit, somewhere I've never been, but my friends from Detroit, you always know they're from Detroit because their favorite thing to tell you is that they're from Detroit.
Oh yeah,
I'm
no
from
doubt. Yeah.
and so, and then to Minnesota. How do you conquer your fears and push forward with your visions? How do you say, this is scary, but that's a fuel for you?
Yeah, I've definitely lived like that for sure. I think it's like I believe like that if you don't push, you, you're gonna you if you don't push yourself, if you don't push through the fear, you will never see the other side of like the fruit that comes from it.
Right,
You go through it, it's tough, the fear part, it's there, um, you don't, and you just believe in yourself. You believe in it, you push through it. And I think those are the people that are successful, that like are able to push through the fear, um, understand it's fearful. It's not something that's not real. Yeah. I mean, you can have that feeling of, is this going to work? Is this going to, can I make it through? But when you do, the fruit from it is just incredible, from it. So, Prince was a leader in not being fearful. Even if he was, he didn't show it, and
right,
he did it anyway. He did it his way.
right,
He
right,
did it the way, sometimes the steps were like, okay, well, but that was his choice. He was strong in his own belief in himself.
right,
And he didn't let anybody tell them or care what anybody thought. And if he did, he pushed through that.
right,
And look where it took him to the heights. And if he had not have thought about, or if he had listened to everybody, all the naysayers and people saying you can't do this or you can't do this, we wouldn't have a Prince. We wouldn't
right,
have a Barack Obama,
right.
or these incredible people that have like pushed through, and they all had fear.
Mhm.
They all had doubts. They all had, struggles. Not everything works, and I think one of the things that about it is you have to be able to be okay with failing. You do, because you are going to fail.
Right.
But from those failures, you learn so much, and then you move forward through that. So I think people that are they're willing to fail, I think is a key thing.
Okay, answer this. I want you to finish this statement for me. The most valuable creative experience I had with Prince was.
Mm, yeah. So he it'll be longer because I'll tell you the story if it's okay.
Okay. Okay.
So we were in Europe, and we were doing a European tour. And during that European tour, he had to shoot B-roll at all, as we were going through. Didn't quite know what it was going to be, but we shot this stuff, and it was potentially video, potentially, just all these different things. And so the last night of the tour was a concert that was shot by Channel 4. It was a 12 camera shoot, and we had created a whole day that was going to air on Channel 4. Never before. It was it was a Prince day, so it was all his music videos, his movies, and then it led up to this concert, the special called The Secret Gig. So we shot The Secret Gig and in London, and then he asked me to fly all of the footage and everything to LA and get it set up to do the editing, because he did deals where he owned the footage and
Right.
he'd be the one that did the creative editing.
Okay.
He had final creative approval,
Right.
which was brilliant in itself. I mean,
Yes.
that's what, he was so ahead of himself, understanding the value of ownership and content and your
Yes.
masters and everything. So even video masters and everything. So I flew to LA. I had it all set up to do the editing bay from the top one, where, back then it was like the rendering and all that took so long for you
Right.
to see. So we had to be in this high end editing bay that you could see real time the edits that you were having happen. And so I have it all set up. He flew to Spain or somewhere for a couple days to relax after the tour, and then he was going to fly in. Well, he calls me and he asks me. He goes, "I'm going to stay a couple extra days. You start editing this concert, right?
Right.
Right?" And I'm like doing other stuff. I've got like MTV deals and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like in the midst, he wants me to start
Editing.
editing something. And
Right.
luckily, I haven't edited any video. I'm not literally the editor, but I'm the one producing it, right?
Right.
I'm the one directing and telling the editor what to do.
What to do.
And
Right.
I'm like, I get off the phone, I'm like, oh my God, you know, here comes the fear, right? Here comes like, I've never done this before.
Intimidation,
He's asking
pressure.
me to do this.
Right.
Wow, okay. Well, I embraced it and I got into it. I said, well, I'm a drummer, so I have good timing. I understand sync, I understand edits, I understand cuts, I know what I like to look at.
Hmm.
So I said, well, here we go. And so we started editing this concert without him, like me. And
Right.
so that was really, really a lot to move through, right? And
On the
to
trust.
right, and this creative, and so he flew in, and I think one of the nervous I've ever been, because it's out of my scope, right? For him to
Right.
sit and look at, and this guy has done like Purple Rain and all these, all these
Right.
music videos, and I'm like, oh my God, he put this on me to do. And so he sits down and he tells the editor to push, and the editors are always nervous. Everybody's nervous around him, right?
Right.
And I'm nervous because of that. And they play it, and he just goes into like, oh, go back a frame, go half a frame back, and like that, and he just gets into this whole thing, and I'm like, wow, he didn't say anything about like, okay, this sucks or anything
Right.
or anything. He just got into it, and when we got done with that session, he goes, go get another editing bay. We're going to cut a music video together. And I'm like, whoa. And so I go and I get the other buyer suite or whatever it was, and we start editing. So we're editing the concert, and now we're editing this
The
music.
music.
But
Right.
in retrospect, at the time, I didn't get it. But he looked at me as creative now,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And so we started to have this creative relationship in the video world. So I cut videos, and he really liked what I was doing, like editing. And it was a whole new thing I hadn't even thought of, like creative, like that I could do, right?
Yes.
He pushed me to something I didn't even know I could do. But I also pushed myself to try,
Right.
and then to find out I actually can. I give myself enough, you know, grace enough to like go, well, let's see what we can do. I think that
Right.
is really important, to move through fear, is just to try it. As I said, you can fall flat on your face. He might have hated it and said, "Oh my God," but I tried, and it happened that I actually was pretty good at it, and so we started that relationship, and then it would be, he would call me. So we were doing uh, a album with Arista Records with Clive Davis. It was the Rave album, and Arista had sent their EPK, which is an electronic press kit
Yeah.
at the time,
Yeah.
to for the new album. And they had shot the footage and everything, and he calls me in my office. He's like, "Come into Studio A. I want you to take a look at this and tell me what you think." And I'm like, "Why is
I
he
got
asking what
right.
I think, right?"
Right.
So I go and I watch it, and he says, "What do you think?" I said, "I don't like it." And he's like, "I don't either. You're doing it." To call him back and tell him you're cutting it. I was like, wow. So I had to call up Arista, tell him to send, and we needed new budget,
Mhm.
and that he wants that done. I went in, I took the footage and I recut it. I sent it to Arista. Clive Davis loved it. Their creative department loved it. And I didn't realize this, but when I ended up leaving Prince, so Arista called me to hire me in the creative department at Arista. I turned them down because I liked, but I said I'd do some independent projects.
Right.
So they started sending me these independent projects for me. And when I started my own business, and I did the first one was Funk Master Flex. They loved it. And then I got a call, and they're like, "We want you to do Outcast. They have a new album called Stankonia coming out, and we want you to fly down and produce it and put it all together." And they sent me the music before it came out, and I was like, "This is gonna be massive, right?
Right. Right.
Massive." So I produced the whole thing, brought the camera crew down, had I interviewed them, but I was like, wow, because of Prince pushing me creatively in that way, I'm end up doing all these things on the side that I didn't even, besides what I do,
Right.
that really was quite, incredible to me. So that was the creative moment with him that we had together, was the video part. It wasn't on the musical side, but he knew I played drums. He would joke. I would play air drums like with some songs, and he'd
Mhm.
go, he knew anyway. So,
I
but it
think
was,
that is I think that is amazing that, he pushed you and you didn't, because he can be very intimidating.
yeah.
And you just kind of went, okay, I can do this. Or I'm being trusted to do this, so let me get on it. But I think you trusted your own creative instincts. Like you said, you knew, being a drummer, that you understood meter, you understood timing, you understood these things. And so just translating that to video editing, and God bless you for doing video editing. That's the most tedious, God forsaken work
Well,
ever.
luckily I didn't have to. We had an editor actually doing the clip for me, but
Okay.
I would
You
say,
had to be the visionary.
yeah, I had to pull the bins down, find the right clips, say, move it, like, can you move it back because it's not in sync fully,
Mhm.
or let's, like, a transition. Let's transition from the close camera to the far out camera with you, where you see the whole crowd, or hit the band, or that's what I did.
Okay. So yeah, I get
Yeah,
that work. When we went on our little grassroots tour, Tyle and I, the other frontman in our group, we went to England. We did 17 shows in 24 days. And I was trying to book these venues. I had a friend over there that was helping out, but they didn't know anything about our work. And so it was like 2006, I want to say, 2005. We put together an EPK and, put together a whole, and it was really our sales pitch. Like,
It
I
is.
never heard of us, but pay us to
Right.
come and perform at your venue. And here's who we are. And it was on CD-ROM. That's how far back.
Wow. Right.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
that's how you had to do it then.
for
Because
sure.
DVDs were so expensive for us, so we
Yeah.
put the whole EPK on CD-ROM. So when you were talking about that, I was like, oh, I know that process. And I think we spent like 48 hours straight putting together like an 8-minute EPK.
Right. It
It
takes
was
time. And
much
then,
work.
rendering and all that. I was doing another project with him, and it was back in Minneapolis, and I remember he wanted to come see it, and so I said, well, you got to have to wait till tomorrow because we just did the edit and it's got to render, and so
Right.
24 hours it had to
Right.
render for him to even see like 3-minute clip. It's like
Yes.
how
Like that's
crazy
gonna
to
take a
think
day.
about. Like today you can just like open up your Mac or whatever you got PC and uh pull up a editing and move the clips and hit. I'm
Yep.
like, it's amazing. It's amazing. So but that's the way we had to roll back then. So
We were creative.
yes, absolutely.
Let me ask you this. So you go from working with Prince and well, really before working with Prince, working with Terry and Jam, like this whole world of music opening. So did you work with Prince after you worked with Terry and Jam, or
Well, we didn't end up working with Terry and Jimmy and Terry. Yeah,
okay,
I think Perspective was, they had Mint and they had theirs, and I think they were
mm,
full of just like focusing on
right,
those artists. And then our band had broke up and all that anyway. So and I just moved up. I was just like, well, I want to still be in Minneapolis. I feel like there's like meeting Craig and playing with Javita and already
yes,
being in that kind of little thing. I felt like uh there was something there for me that maybe I didn't, if I moved to LA or if I moved to New York or the bigger hubs to try to work my way up. I felt like there was an opportunity in Minnesota for me already on a natural organic way. And
right.
so that's why I said, well, I'm going to move because I knew I was going to move from Michigan. You know and so yeah, so it was just like a natural progression for me to say and I moved to Minneapolis.
Got you around the right people. So you go from music and music industry stuff to alcohol.
Yeah.
You definitely know how to pick industries that everybody needs and loves.
Yeah,
Music and liquor
right. Well, they do work
go hand in hand.
definitely. And it wasn't like, it's like I was talking to someone yesterday about like even how it's structured. It's really, interesting. That felt very easy transition for me to go into. Um, I just really kind of, I didn't choose alcohol, spirits, so to speak. In the, I had been working in music and, uh, having my, own independent company, working with different artists and, you know, um, I worked with Carlos Santana. I worked with, just different groups and that, but I got a little bit burnout around 2010. I had just had my son. He was a couple years old. It's a lot of work having a son and then having sons and daughters as artists. You know what I'm talking about? Like
I do.
they're your team. You gotta help them.
Yep.
And so I felt a little I and so at that point I also saw the industry struggling, and I wrote a business plan for the business partner I had at the time. And I read it and I went, this is a bunch of malarkey. I just read my own business plan, and I just was like, wow, how are we going to sustain as managers and help artists? When this is before Spotify and Apple Music and all that was really kind of prevalent, right? It was just
Right.
kind of I saw it kind of happening.
Well, Napster opened the floodgates, right?
Right,
And
right.
something completely different.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it was how do you really kind of generate revenue? And that would be you need to have some artists that are really, touring and having, merchandise and things like that. I already saw that kind of coming.
Right.
So I was like, I really feel like, so I said to my business partner, I really feel like it's time to like we should kind of create a brand of some sort. Um, had no clue what that was going to be. Just put that out there. And he ended up meeting a guy who had a tequila
I'm
and
sorry, Jackie, one moment.
yeah.
I'm on a podcast. Sorry, I'm staying at this hotel and Rosa on the front desk was trying to
No, 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 it's all good. It's all
all right,
good.
continue.
So I'll go back. Um, what was I saying? What was I saying?
You were talking about your business partner. You had read the
We really wanted to be figure out a brand. At least I felt like it was the next step in my evolution. I wanted to own a brand of some sort. Didn't know what it was going to be, but he ended up meeting a guy who owned a small boutique tequila and mezcal. He was out one night and bumped into the guy. So they became friends. There was some connections to Minnesota. Um, as Detroiters, Minnesotans are like that too. We always gravitate to our
Yep.
people. And I do feel myself as more of a Minnesotan. I feel like that's home. And so anyway, we started working with the guy ultimately about 6 months later because he saw we had the database connections and all that, and so started working with him. I wrote a one sheet that got him distribution for his product right away, and then but I just felt like we could do it better. I don't mean to, I'm not gonna call
Right.
you
You
back,
just
but it
saw
just felt like,
bigger vision.
yeah. And we could just elevate this. And so we started a company. And so I going back, I really felt like I started learning about tequila and agave spirits and mezcal, and then going down and meeting you know, just just like the idea of I love the Mexican people. I love the farmers. I love it's just beautiful, and I really love the lifestyle and just it's just gorgeous. So it really got me really into it, like learning about the plants, and the plant is just an amazing plant, and the agave plant, it's medicinal. It has a lot of different things besides just alcohol. The other thing is that it's the lowest in glycemic spike for the sugar, so it's like the one of the best alcohols if you're going to drink alcohol to
Right.
drink, right? So anyway, so that really got me into learning about all the plants and the agriculture and everything. So I really became passionate about it, and so we formed our own company in 2012, and pretty much the first kind of BIPOC company in agave spirits.
Okay.
And agave, and I say agave spirit because agave is the overarching category that tequila's in, mezcal, and
Right.
all, different spirits.
Right.
And so we started that. It was there's that fearless factor again, and of like, we're going to do this, and everybody's like, oh, that's alcohol, spirits, it's so hard to get into and all that stuff. Okay. Yeah, well, if you don't do it, you'll never get into it, right?
Back to that theme again, right?
Right. So we did, and we got it in stores successfully, built it up. um I ended up leaving in 2018. Needed a break from that, and just like kind of needed to do a just a I don't know what I would say, just like um, upgrade of myself in a sense, like find myself again and what I wanted to do. And it is, and so got back into doing some music and things that helping people a little bit too, because I did miss that too. So now I I've learned to balance, like, I have music, creative clients still, just a few. And then in 2022, I decided to do a mezcal.
Okay.
I figured out what was I missing about Revel, that my first business, that what was I missing? And it was missing the farms, missing the agave, missing
Okay.
the producers, missing the
Hmm.
people. And so I was like, well, let's do that. So I have a new business partner, and she's wonderful. And we decided to actually, she was an artist on Prince's label, Ingrid Chavez, and so she uh, is creative on her own stuff, poetry and creativeness. And she wrote Justify My Love with Madonna, so she's had she has her own music career, but we came together as friends and love of agave. And so we started a all-female brand, um, um, Mezcal. And even the producer is a young female producer,
Nice.
Mescalera. She does our juice. So I really am excited about this because it's really bringing all of my things that I love to do in my life and that I've learned: branding, creativeness, business, setting it up, the foundation. Because there is the business side of creativity that a lot of artists don't do or understand.
I'm dealing with it right now with the
Right.
group that I'm working with, so I get
Yeah.
it.
So understanding that there is a business and how you're going to make your creative flow, how you're going to make your whatever you create, make it so that you can sustain, right?
Right. And
And
go and
so you
create
have some,
other things.
right, yeah, right.
Yeah.
So there is some foundational stuff that artists need to understand and learn um, about that. And so so balancing all those things, the foundational part of business, creativity, the love of agave, bringing still creative thing in music, infusing it because it all kind of works together. Is I'm excited about that. So blending all the things that I've learned over the years to this new endeavor. So it's the mezcal is Las Melodías, the melodies,
Yes.
playing off of both of our love of music, and then also the notes from the mezcal are beautiful. If you drink, it's you know
I do. Occasionally, a little bit, a little
yeah,
bit.
yeah. It's that's what
Um,
it's for. It's not. It's for occasions. It's not. So
yeah, no, I'm too old to drink. Like I'm in my 20s still. Uh, I want to change the page a little bit. There's a couple things I really want to get to before we have to close our time here. It's such a pleasant conversation. We could sit here and talk for hours. Unfortunately, I also have a class I have to teach this
yeah,
afternoon.
no worries.
Um, so this year, the PRN Alumni Foundation, COMPAS, are going to work together on some initiatives that will raise money for the work COMPAS does to put creativity in the hands of Minnesotans, and especially kids and teens, as I'm way up here by Canada, and young adults from historically marginalized communities. From your perspective, why are PRN and COMPAS a good fit for this type of partnership?
Right. Well, the first thing, I mean, going back to the mission of the alumni, which is really kind of taking that from Prince's you know philanthropic work that he did, and he did so many different things, but he definitely you know working with him and knowing what he was doing with love for one another that he had. We just decided to take a couple of mission pieces from that, and our main mission is to help uh, creativity, fun creativity in the schools and in wherever it is. It can be small classrooms or and it can be music or art. We've given to art classes for kids, music for kids. We're open to creativity with STEM because we all believe that's part of the creative flow. And so because of that mission, we really felt that Compass really aligns with our mission. and so we don't do the actual work of being in the schools or being with the kids. Our job is to facilitate helping fundraise and bring money to organizations like Compass, yourself. So it was perfect alignment, and just feel like, this is, and it's, backyard, Minnesota. So it's a perfect. I mean, we've done fundraising in London, and we'll do fundraising, because Prince is global. So
Right.
we're not just focusing on Minnesota, but really felt like this was a really great fit for us, with you guys and what you guys do.
Well, speaking for myself, and I think speaking for Compass, we are looking forward to the partnership and so appreciative. I think the work that we do, oftentimes goes unseen. And I'm always amazed at how many teachers that I've worked with that are school or teachers that I befriend along the way as an artist that don't know anything about Compass,
Right.
And I host an open mic now on Thursday nights. It's a live band open mic jam, which, by the way, you need to get down to and check it out because you would love it. And so people are coming out and say, well, where can we find you, or where can we do more of this? Or and I tell them, I work with Compass and we go into schools and do residencies. And they're like, what? And I'm like, oh, we have to get this out there more because, in my opinion, the artists, the singer-songwriters, the musicians, the poets, the visual artists that are on the Compass roster are second to none. And I've been with Compass for 20 years. So I've seen firsthand the work that Compass artists can do and how that tree grows,
Yeah.
without names. There's at least three Compass artists that I can think of that were students,
Hmm.
or not Compass artists, foundational heads that were students of mine, 20 years ago that now are running their own nonprofits or are award-winning authors or have a whole career in music. And I'm like, I remember when they were a seventh grader in my class and I was teaching them, how to use poetic devices and similes and metaphors to create good poetry. And now look at them, now they're teaching other young people this.
Right.
And so that's the beauty. And so an organization like PNR Alumni Foundation helping Compass be able to expand, I think it's a match made in heaven because we do the frontline work that you're talking about. We are the ones.
Exactly. And I'm excited to explore having some of our alumni, come in and do a panel. Like, we
Yes.
started with panels. We were actually the first people to really bring our alumni together, since we have a big database, and we started at the Capri, where Prince got
Okay.
his first, concert. And we did like panels that had, um, uh, you know, uh, artist, makeup artist and stylist, and things like people don't think about all the things that take to help move up and help artists become, and this iconic it's not just him. It's like there's a team of people
Right.
that really help him. Obviously, for Prince, he was very adamant about what he wanted, and that's
Right.
fine. But he still needed the people to help manifest his dream, right?
Yes. He had
And
to
all
delegate.
parts, right?
Yeah.
From the tour manager that has to take you through all the cities,
Yes.
to PR, to all that. So um, I think that knowledge, and that, because someone might not end up being maybe not the best poet, but might be it might inspire them to get into public relations,
Yes.
or I want to be a stylist, or I want to end up
Yes.
being a photographer, or, there's so many different makeup artists. So there's so many different aspects that flow behind the scenes.
And it's
So
all creative work, right?
yeah, it's all creative for sure.
So our time is getting short,
Yep.
but I'd be
Yep.
remiss. I want to ask you two more questions
Okay. Sounds good.
before I let you get out of here. One, on a more personal level, you're a parent. Um, has watching your child grow and develop given you any insights about creativity or altered how you think of the role of being a creative when it's manifesting through your own young ones?
Yeah, that's a good one. So my son, he comes from parents that play music, from the creative side, both parents. And I have let he is natural. He's so talented, and so whatever he wants to do, but he's kind of moved towards, I don't want to push him in any way. I'm here to expose different areas that he could go into. I mean, he played drums, at, his after school program and different things, but it kind of tapered off a bit on that. And that's okay. I'm not going to push in any way. My parents didn't push, and I love that. It's like whatever, all we can do is give opportunities. I think the adjustment that I had to do was learn the way that kids think today, and what they're exposed and what they have at their hands are different than what I had. And so he wants to, he's done, like, I had him in a Photoshop class. He's a great like drawer and that, which is kind of manifested into more of, he's been very specific that he wants to do coding.
Okay.
He wants to be in coding, and that is so creative.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? He could do a full stack, be a full stack coder, which is like he could do the graphic design and the creative part of like how it looks in the front end. And then there's the back end of all the functionality that has to happen on a site or whatever you're going to be. So, so I've been really kind of pushing him into that. So he's going to do a course with Python and machine learning of this summer. So I feel as a parent, my job is just to let him or whoever, um, flourish in whatever they want to do.
Right.
Give them opportunities, and like, yeah, it would have been great for him to keep playing the drums. He was actually really quite good, but that's not where he's going, and that's
Right.
okay, right?
Right.
But I want him to do whatever he wants to do, and be passionate, because I think the key to happiness is to find your passion. The key to happiness is to find out what you're here on this earth for, figure it out, like, and work towards it, and work towards the passion that you want to be, and do. There's times where I had to do regular work, right? That wasn't my passion. It was part of like, just you had to
Make
work,
it pay the bills.
pay the bills, but I was still steadily moving towards my goal and my
Right.
passion, and I wasn't losing sight of that. So I hope that, he has that. I hope he finds his passion and really kind of moves towards it. That's all as a parent you can do.
Well, as someone who has created many good memories for our listeners, whether they realize you were a part of it or not. Obviously, in your work with music and work with Prince and Paisley Park, and your work with all the musicians that have come through there, that have created the sounds that we know and love, the images that we know and love. We thank you for being a part of using your creative juices and creative genes to create so many happy memories. Like you said, we all revere Prince as an artist, and very few of us actually know how many people were a part of the collective that made all of those memories happen, both in terms of, from musical production, from, video production, to, as you say, flying to California and being told, like, I need you to edit this for me. And then we just see the end result. We don't
Right.
see all of the creative minds that have collaborated to create what become lifetime memories, and then how passionate people are about Prince, right? So we thank
I
you
do.
for being a part of creating our memories. In closing, are there any other gems of wisdom, any last nugget about creativity as a whole that you would like to share?
That's a nice one. I think it's like, you just got to let go and try things. Like, I'm not the best songwriter, but I still write,
Mhm.
and and it feels good. So even if you're doing something else and you still love something, that you're like, if you like poetry, and but you work as an accountant and you love poetry, keep doing the poetry,
Writing
right?
poetry.
For yourself, at least, just like keep that flow. Like, I think for you, you felt like maybe what you talked about earlier, which was about the all the different things you were doing, all the hats you were doing, it got you away from what was the core,
Yeah,
right? Which is
yeah,
just pure create being just being creative. And I think that's where I think people should still do. Come back to whatever it is that you love. If you like writing, if you like whatever it is, drawing, those type of things, do it for yourself, and
yeah.
keep that flow going.
Well, thank goodness for Compass because they put me back in the classrooms teaching. And so then, therefore, it re inspired me to be the writer and spoken word artist that always is my happy place. So,
I love it, and being around the young energy and I'm just excited. I mean, yeah, you talked about 50 more years of work. I probably am not going to be here,
me
but
neither.
the legacy, right? But the legacy of that is so important to know that, it's the core of, I think, being human.
Yeah, yeah. We lay down roots and we grow trees.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Thank you, Jackie, so much for
Thank you,
joining us.
Frank. I really appreciate it.
Hey, it's
And
been a
Compass for
great
having me on. I really
conversation.
appreciate
Yes,
having
yes,
me on.
yes. And to Sam, Sam
Yeah,
always
Sam,
together
thank
the
you.
best guests ever. Um, You've
Thanks.
been tuning in to Creativity on Tap. Creativity on Tap is a series of conversations produced by Compass about the value and importance of creativity. This year, Compass turns 50. That's half a century of putting creativity in the hands of millions of Minnesotans. And we are working really hard to ensure we'll be doing this for 50 more years. Creativity on Tap is a part of Creativity Saves the World, a year-long initiative led by Compass to explore the role creativity can and must play in solving the unique challenges of this era. For more information about Compass and how creativity saves the world, visit Compass, COMPAS.org. Jackie, it's been a pleasure. I can't wait to talk to you. I'm going to be asking for your phone number when we're done here because we have to sit down and talk. There's so much I want to sit down.
Sounds good.
Lunch on me. All right.
You got it.
On
Drinks
me.
on me,
Yeah. What sounds good. All the mezcal. Thank you
right?
for joining us.
All right. Thanks.